The pamphlet that was published at the beginning of 1776 and pushed lots of people towards supporting independence was called Common Sense. Common Sense. And it was written by a Whig, right, revolutionary, named Thomas Paine. Paine was well-educated, probably something close to a genius, and not super rich because of his commitment to ideas, but certainly elite in his education. Paine wanted people to support independence, and he wrote Common Sense to try to do just that, to try to push people to support independence. The pamphlet was first published in January 1776, and then, in the months that followed, it was reprinted again and again and circulated through all 13 colonies. It was one of the most widely read works of any kind in all of the 18th century in the American colonies. It was probably second only to the Bible. There is one historian who argued that probably every adult in America either read it or heard it read out loud, because there were public readings of it. You know, someone stands in front of the courthouse and reads the pamphlet to you. It was only like, 40, 50 pages, something like that. But it was amazingly effective. The style of the pamphlet was, it was written in a common language. Paine said, "I will offer simple facts, plain arguments, and common sense." And the pamphlet was written to appeal to everyone, no matter what your education. If you heard it, well, it was powerful. And the way he organized it was that he would take the main arguments that people would give for why we shouldn't be independent, and one by one, he would take that argument, the argument, that the thing that people say, right? And he would take that argument and he would sort of parody the argument, make it look weaker than they would. And then he would just smash that argument. So let's take a few of the most important, most common arguments against independence. And many of these you'll remember from the Virginia legislature when Patrick Henry was trying to get them to vote for war. So let's take first the argument that it would ruin us economically. And you heard that a lot. That Britain's our number one trading partner. If we rebel against our trading partner, we will be destroyed. Well, Thomas Paine said that once they were independent, Britain would still trade with them. He said, "I know they say that they won't, but they will. Once we win, once we're independent, they'll trade with us. They'll trade with us for the simple reason that they need our stuff. They need what we produce." And he said, once we're independent, we can trade not just with Britain, but with France, with the Dutch, with the Spanish. Once we're independent, he was arguing, we can trade with whoever we want. He was making an early argument for the idea that's sometimes called free trade. And remember, in the triangular trade system, that was not how it worked, right? Remember, each country tried to have a closed economic system. But But Paine said, when we win, we can trade with whoever we want, and we'll actually be better off economically. And he would often have these lines which produced laughter in audiences or when people read them alone. And here, Paine said, this may not be a quote, but it's a pretty close paraphrase. He said, "We shall be successful as long as eating remains the fashion in Europe." Because who feeds Europe? We do. We grow corn and potatoes and wheat and all the other tobacco and rice. They'll buy our stuff. All right, so there's the economic argument, right? Second, the argument that we can't win. The argument that we can't win, we can't defeat them, they're too powerful. Well, here, Paine predicted that other countries would come help the Americans win their independence. He predicted that other countries in Europe would come help them. And that was not a widely held view. But, he said, even if it's just us, even if it's just the 13 colonies united together, we can still win. We can still beat them. He said, to defeat us, to defeat a people determined to be free, they would have to send so many soldiers over here to control us that they couldn't afford it. He said they would have to empty out the island of England. Think about that. Like, you'd have to get everybody in England to come over here and control the Americans. Make them obey England, because there's nobody in England. He said, after all, who ever heard of a continent being controlled by an island? Right? Because that's what England is, an island. And look at us. Look at us over here. Millions of people. They can't defeat us. And third, let's take the argument that's most difficult for modern audiences to understand. The argument that we should love our king, which there were so many people who just believed because they were raised with it. Oh, the king is our father. We've always got to respect and love our king. Well, here, there had been, and there were, lots of people in the American colonies who would tell you, King George III is a bad king. That's the king we have right now, the king in charge, all right? And they would say to you, oh, our current king? I don't like him very much. But then if you said to them, right, that's because monarchy's a terrible system, they would say to you, oh, no, he's just a bad king. The next king will be better. He'll fix everything. To those people, Thomas Paine argued that monarchy was stupid, that it was a stupid system of government. And the way he framed that argument, he said that it was developed, monarchy, centuries ago, before the Enlightenment, when people didn't use reason, when people were ignorant. And monarchy was created way back then, before any of us were born. And then, the monarchs made monarchy hereditary, right? So it just passed down from father to son. And then, he pointed out that the royal families of Europe all married each other. And he pointed out that people now knew that that produced lower intelligence. So he said, not only have we consented to be ruled by one man, we have consented to be ruled by the inbred. Ouch. Zing. Zing, doll. monarchs. He said that because people now knew how to use reason, people could govern themselves. And he said that no one should live in a monarchy. And he said that the American states should declare their independence and govern themselves with democracy. It was radical stuff, and it was powerful. And it pushed many people to say, well, he makes good arguments. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do this. And you could feel it just like when you talk to people at church, like opinions had shifted. When you went to the courthouse and talked to other farmers in the area, and you'd be like, wow, everybody's thinking the same sort of thing I'm thinking. It shifted opinion. Now, there were still lots of loyalists, but things had shifted. And in the summer, in June and then early July, the Congress was working on a Declaration of Independence. So the Declaration of Independence, the official breaking away, is produced by the Congress. And the Congress picks a committee of guys to write the Declaration. And Thomas Jefferson becomes the lead author. Thomas Jefferson, then, is the man who writes like 95% of the Declaration. There's some editing that the other guys do, but it's essentially his. And in the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson builds the arguments for independence on those two important political ideas from the Enlightenment. So it's built around the ideas of natural rights and the social contract. And in the process, Jefferson says that the king has been purposefully trying to destroy the social contract. And that is the conspiracy theory, now written into the Declaration. Okay, so there will be two phrases from the Declaration that you'll have to remember so that you can quote them, all right? And so look at the passage over there at the right. And note the way that Jefferson begins. He says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." Self-evident here means obvious, all right? So he says, all right, we hold these truths to be obvious. He's starting then by saying, like, okay, everybody knows what I'm about to say, all right? Everybody knows what I'm about to say. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Wowzers. Having prefaced it with, okay, so we all know this, he then says that all men are created equal. And that's the first phrase you need to know. All men are created equal. That phrase has tremendous power. And it's going to inspire people throughout the Revolution and throughout history since.